And we're live.
Hello.
Well, it wouldn't be awful if it was the opposite.
The opposite of live.
Dead.
What is what is the opposite of
Yeah.
live?
Welcome to our dead stream.
Yeah.
Like, that's just all kinds of wrong. Anyway, welcome everybody. I was explaining to Rochelle, and anyone who listens to the podcast or has been on one of these live streams before will know that I generally have no idea what I'm going to say to begin with. And I'm glad that I started today with something which is moderately inappropriate. So, welcome, Rochelle. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm looking at my other screen and it says the event will start soon. So I just want to do a tech test and make sure that we actually are live.
No, we're absolutely live. There's just a bit of a delay.
Okay, great stuff. I will ignore that then.
That's the way that these things go. It's
Yeah.
enjoy live streaming. And it does say, the event will start soon. But I mean, I think you'll find the event has started. But what I always tend to do, just in case something does go wrong, is just to not cover anything too valuable at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's not do the definition of TBR or anything like that.
No. or just let everyone know why they should absolutely come to our course or plug our course now rather than plug it at the end. So we're gonna be just waiting a little bit longer, wait for some more people to arrive. We'll make sure that everything is working. Although I say, it's definitely working. It isn't popping up on my LinkedIn yet. Is it popping up on yours yet?
No, it still says the event will start soon, it says the host will start it.
Yeah. Well, that's I think I find the host has started it. Let me see if I can do anything on here. Da-da-da. It's so funny. You're right. Something isn't quite working. I'll say the classic thing is, it's never happened to me before. I'm back again. So we are live. It just hasn't connected our live stream here to the event. So I can view it on LinkedIn. Just it hasn't connected it properly to the event.
Is there a different way to join? Is there like a way to join through LinkedIn directly?
There will be. Give me a minute.
So Rohit's just mentioned saying, it's live.
Oh, really? Great. We just get to see us noodling around. Yeah. Well, guys, if you are seeing this, welcome. Hi. Can anyone see us? A few tech issues, it seems. Very strange. I mean, yeah. So we are definitely live on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Hello, YouTube people.
But we're not live on LinkedIn, which
We're
is
not live
where
on
the
LinkedIn.
majority of people will be joining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Yeah, Rashi's got the message saying the event will start soon.
okay, let's do a little.
Is it because it's through the Sheave LinkedIn page? Does the Sheave LinkedIn
No.
page need to start it?
No. So normally you just click start and it works. And the fact it's streaming, there's a mismatch. It's something behind the scenes which you can't do anything about. So
Oh, that's frustrating.
it is. It is. Like I say, it's never gone this wrong before. So we have a choice. Hold on, let me double check. We can provide the YouTube link into LinkedIn and get everyone to join YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a sensible. Put the link into the chat.
Can you join us here, please? Sorry, everyone on YouTube. If you're watching this, Rohit, I know you're there. Hello, mate. We will get there. We're just having a few technical problems because LinkedIn doesn't seem to be playing ball. So we are just moving LinkedIn people across. So if you wait a second there, we will begin properly very soon. So just bear with us. Okay. So yeah, it's a funny one. So yeah, if anyone from Restream is watching this, like something didn't work, Restream people. I'm just seeing if there's any way I can kind of make it work. That won't work. Okay, hey, there's Rashi. Hello, Rashi, and Rohit. Hello there. There's some other people joining as well. So yeah, great. We have some of the right people in the right place. We will just wait a moment for any other stragglers to come along. And then we'll start the conversation a little bit later than planned.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hi, Rohit. Hi, Rashi.
Me and Michelle was saying, even if nobody comes, then at least we have a nice conversation. But it would appear maybe like people would be coming.
People are there. Just
people are there.
We can't see them.
We just see them. And the great thing is,
technology.
I'm not even sure if you can edit videos on YouTube once they've kind of gone live. So everyone's got RNA and tapping and like trying to fix stuff at the beginning. But that's fine. There's always something we can do. Brilliant. Well, Rochelle, in the interest of just like getting on with shit.
Yes. Yeah.
Shall we begin? And then we'll see how things pan out. I'll keep an eye on LinkedIn. So if anyone does join there, we can always kind of push them in the right direction. And then maybe we'll just we'll do it again on LinkedIn another time. I mean, Rochelle, we always have the option. We could always kind of push it and then kind of redo it another day.
I think we're here now. Hopefully we've got some people in attendance. We know we've got Rohit. We know we've got Rashi.
Yeah.
We've got Phil in LinkedIn comments. Hopefully he joins the YouTube link. So yeah.
Let's crack on.
Yeah.
Let's crack on. Well, everyone, welcome to what is a short live stream. We're only going for about another 50 minutes or so, where I am here to have a conversation with Rochelle to talk about how to design training that sticks and saves your company money. Rochelle is a reasonably newly minted TBR trainer. Is that right? Reasonably
Yeah,
newly minted, yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
November.
November last year. Yeah, so welcome to the community
Thank you very much.
of
Thank you.
TBR trainers. In the UK, there aren't many training from the back of the room trainers. Um, it's me and JP have been the only active ones for a long time. No one else has ever really tried to make a fist of it. So with my kind of business evolving and things kind of moving around for me, having Rochelle kind of enter the UK market was just fantastic, because TBR is definitely something which more people need to know about. And having somebody with such an amazing experience and a passion for it is exactly what the UK market needs. So, Rochelle, thank you very much for making the time to come and do this live stream with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yourself and JP are awesome, and the other TBR trainers are awesome as well. So I'm really pleased to be here as part of the community, and as part of the network, and hopefully share it with as many people as we can.
Yes.
Yeah, as soon as I learnt TBR last year, I knew that I was going to pursue it forward. So I'm really excited to be talking about TBR today.
What's the one thing that you really remember more than anything else from your TBR uh, training? And that's either your trainer training or the original course. So what's the
Yeah.
one thing that instantly springs to mind?
Yeah, for me, it's the energy. I'm a big believer in sort of like how things impact your energy, and if it positively impacts your energy, it's something that you should pursue. And for the TBR training that I did last year, the train the trainer training that I did with JP, and then the TBR camp that I did as well last year. All three of those sessions, energy I was left with at the end of all of those sessions, normally training drains you because it's
Mm.
you're thinking hard, so it can be quite draining. But all three of those events, I was just absolutely buzzing by the end of the sessions. They're writing up my notes, like wanting to do LinkedIn posts, wanting to share it wider, creating sessions, like for the TBR camp. And it really is just the energy it's basically that dopamine hit that you basically get from the TBR. It really does kind of electrify you and leave you wanting more. Yeah.
What a sales pitch. I'm sold. I'm sold. When's your next course? When can I come along?
Yes, yeah, great question. So we're doing the TBR practitioner course next month, 28th, 29th of April. So it'll be my first public training, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, yeah, as soon as I did TBR, I knew this was going to be the thing that I was going to become a trainer for. So yeah, I'm really excited to be running it next month and share that energy and that passion with everyone that's going to be there.
Great. Well, it's going to be infectious in a positive way.
Yes,
That's why.
yeah.
That'll be the goal. So we put this together and we were wondering what on earth do we focus on for the conversation. And we thought, actually, training from the back of the room, it's been around for quite a long time. And everybody wants training that sticks, training that makes an impact. But also, many organizations waste so much money on training, and it just doesn't have any impact. So what we decided was actually, from our experiences, training from the back room actually helps save companies money. So that's going to be part of the focus of today, is talk about how does training stick and how can it actually save organizations money, which I think is just as important for learning and development professionals as it is for agile coaches, product coaches, and other people as well, because as part of our value that we can add to an organization. Yeah, let's be honest, a lot of that value could be saving money rather than actually kind of making more money. So my first question to ask you, Rochelle, because this is the way that it's going to work, I'm going to be asking you questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Um, is this, and I've got my question over here. Most organizations know training should stick, yet they continue to use ineffective methods. Why do you think organizations and people generally tend to default to like these failing and ineffective approaches?
hmm Yeah, so ultimately, organizations tend to stick to what they know because it is what they know. It's the way that we were taught at schools, having someone stand at the front and then all of the students in the back. And there's syllabuses that you want to achieve. So you want to tick all the boxes of I want to achieve XYZ in by running these training courses. So organizations tend to stick to running training with slides, with lots of content, because they want to tick the box of yes, I've achieved the syllabus, and yes, I've delivered the content that I wanted to achieve today. Um, and it's easier when you've got all the content on the slides behind you. As a presenter, it's easier. You just stand there and just deliver the content that you plan. So a lot of organizations tend to align to that because they're maybe scared of delivering the right content, um, and also, yeah, wanting to get all the content across. So yeah, I think that's kind of why organizations tend to do it. But TBR ultimately is different. It's spinning everything on its head to encourage training to be learner led. So it's delivering training in a way that is short and sharp. One of the trumps of TBR that we referred to is shorter over longer. So rather than having lots of content just thrown at people, we do it in short 10-minute bursts. So a tiny bit of content and then an activity to prove that you've understood that content. And really, then that's the opportunity for the learners to share with each other and connect with each other, connect with the content and connect with each other. And that's way more powerful than a trainer standing at the front just delivering lots of content, because then you're able to regularly prove that the attendees have actually learned what you've intended to deliver. So you're having those moments throughout the training regularly to check on that, ultimately to ensure that they've understood the content and then they're able to apply it as well, turn the content into knowledge and action to then lead to something different going away from this training.
Nice. I mean, a lot there, a lot to unpack.
Hmm.
So you're saying one is as traditional training is good for box ticking. You can see that people
Hmm.
have learned the syllabus and you can just tick it off and then you're done. Also, you mentioned there that it's easier. It's easy for companies to get training rolled out across a whole organization, let's say, or within a particular group. If they're just talking to the slides, then great, any person can stand up and talk to the slides. But is it going to have the impact? I mean, what you're saying is actually having the impact. Are there regular ways to check in and make sure that it proves that people have learned the knowledge which you are then kind of putting across to them? I think they're all great selling points and inspired by something you said there. So the answer, I think, to it, an answer to this question was is part of what you said there. But is there any kind of common misconception around training effectiveness that you think that people always fall into?
Mm. The common misconception is needing lots of content, needing to include everything around that topic that you're delivering. Um, yeah, whereas TBR, we try to ensure that we deliver the need to knows, not all of the want to knows, not everything around the topic. It's what is the core need to knows that you need to
Mhm.
deliver, rather than delivering everything that's aligned to agile ways of working, scrum, whatever it is that you're delivering. Rather than trying to get everything across, what are those need to knows that the attendees are ultimately wanting to take away?
I like that. It's better than the one I had in mind. Um,
Good to hear.
which is the icebreaker. You
Hmm.
know, people think it's like, oh, like we can be effective if we have an icebreaker at the beginning, but icebreakers on their own are pretty crap and cringy.
Hmm.
But there's those content relevant icebreakers that you find in the connections activities in TBR. I think that they're probably, for me, that's one of the biggest misconceptions is that icebreakers are crap if you haven't got the
Hmm.
content along with it.
Yeah.
But your one was great. You know, I think it's so often people think it is just how much content can we get up in front of people. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah.
And you make a really good point. I did a post on it earlier this week. Last week, I attended inclusive facilitation, and I see Rashi's put a comment around TBR is no, neurodiverse friendly. And it really is. Last week at this inclusive facilitation, we were doing connection exercises at the start, and Jan, who was facilitating it, was made exactly the point that you made. Icebreakers are terrible because they make everyone feel on edge. And yeah, they're like, oh no, we're going to have to do this icebreaker. It doesn't actually, do what the purpose is, which is make people feel comfortable and connect them to the session. And he talked about kind of how he refers to it, which is ice melters. And really in TBR, the concept was felt very familiar to me because we use connection activities. So as part of the 4 Cs, we use connections instead of icebreakers. And those connections really are ultimately connecting people to the content straight away, but also connecting each other. Connecting to each other in the room as well. So through something that's related to the content and not just a random icebreaker that makes everyone feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a very kind of valid point that's been in my mind over the last week, especially.
Ah, nice. Welcome, Jane. She's found us. Good to have you here, Jane. And anyone else, if you are on, if you've made it to YouTube, fantastic. Thank you for the technical difficulties. Something went wrong, and that's beyond our control. And try as we might to have fixed it. LinkedIn isn't all like seemingly not really designed for making life easy. So we are on YouTube. And welcome, Jane. Welcome, Rashi. Welcome, Rohit.
Yeah,
Anyone
welcome.
else, if you're there, do drop us a line. Just say hi, send us a wave. It'd be good to know you're there. And do feel free to ask questions as we go.
Yes.
Now, Rochelle, we've kind of gone into the depths a little bit of kind of TBR, and but we haven't really given an overview of exactly what TBR is. And TBR is just easier than saying training from the back of the room. So, what's your elevator pitch for
Yeah.
training from the back of the room?
Yeah. So for me, training for the back of the room is ultimately a train the trainer course that's context agnostic. So it can apply to any context. And it gives you the tools and techniques. It's very tools and techniques heavy. Um, so that you can go away from the training, the 2-day practitioner course, to be able to use those tools and techniques to deliver training, to deliver workshops, to deliver uh, meetings, and anything kind of related to getting knowledge across to a group of people, so that you can do it in a way that it actually sticks. So you can deliver content in a way that sticks, and ensure that it's learner led. So it gives you tools and techniques, to ensure that the learner is constantly engaged in the content that you're doing as part of training from the back of the room, and giving you different exercises and ways to ensure that the trainer isn't training at you. The trainer is at the back of the room effectively, but ensuring that the learner really is engaged throughout. They have opportunities to talk, they have opportunities to engage. So yeah, I guess that would be my summary.
Nice. Now, it reminds me of the end of the training from the back of the room training course. There's this bit where you get to stand at the back of the room and let the room run itself,
Hmm.
where everyone's teaching each other, everyone's giving each other feedback, and you set them up to be able to do that. And a lot of it is like almost facilitation. Yes, it's training from the back of the room, but in order to make that work, in order for you to be able to go to the back of the room, what you are actually doing is providing lots of facilitation advice to people and teaching
Yeah.
people how to facilitate their own learning, which I think is something which is maybe not fully understood with TBR. Is actually what we're talking about is having people facilitate their own learning, which
Yeah.
is massively beneficial. Now, we talk about learning sticking and stickiness. And the assumption is that stickiness of learning equals success. Is that a fair assumption?
Stickiness of learning is a assumption of success. I guess it is in terms of if someone has taken away learning from a content, if a session is designed to deliver learning and it sticks with them and they're able to take it, do something with it, then it's a success. But I
Mm,
guess the real thing that we're aiming for is, yes, it sticks, but it leads to action. It leads to something different, so that people, yes, it's sticking with them, but it's getting them to do something different. They've attended the training and they're now turning it into action. They're
mhm.
doing something with it.
And that's, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's one thing that um, I learned from Julie Dirksen in her book, Design for How People Learn. There's a big difference between knowledge and skills.
Mhm.
Yeah, knowledge is something that if you can give somebody the knowledge to do something, and then you are um, the person is then proficient in the thing simply by having the knowledge, then it was a knowledge gap.
Mhm.
If the person cannot be proficient in the thing, whatever the thing is, simply by having acquiring the knowledge, but it actually requires some practice in order for that person to be proficient, then there's a skills gap there as well. So I think what we're saying is that the great thing about TBR is that, well, one, it does focus on the knowledge gaps, which is what we call like C2 concepts.
Mhm.
When you're looking at the 4Cs map, which is the method of instructional design you get taught in TBR. But then it also talks about C3, which is concrete practice, which is then how do you put that into some kind of realistic action? And
Yep.
then, yeah, success is people being able to take that experience and then go and be able to apply it in the real world.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately using that, yeah, what we refer to as the 4 Cs, going through the 4 Cs. So connecting to the content, getting the content as part of it, the concrete practice. So practicing what you've just learned, and then actually having some sort of conclusion away from it as well. And the conclusion is really how you're going to take it forward. It's a way to
Mm.
celebrate it, but also turning it into action so that you can take it forward.
So if you flip it on its head a moment, and this is a very, I think this is a difficult question. It's a question I got asked many years ago. Someone said to me, "How do you know that your training's been effective?" And I didn't have a good answer. But if you flip that on its head a little bit and said, like, how can people or organizations realistically measure the cost of like learning outcomes not being achieved, other than saying, "Oh well, yeah, they had a day in a room with an expensive trainer, and that's money down the drain." Like, how
Mhm.
else can you then articulate the loss, as it were, the the cost of those, yeah, poor training?
Yeah, yeah. So you've got the cost around the trainer that you're paying for. You've got the cost around the people attending the training. They're not able to deliver any other value during that time. And then if the training isn't sticking, then therefore the likelihood is that there's gonna be retraining. There's a reason for you delivering that training in the first place. So if it didn't stick the first time because it's been delivered in a way that isn't TBR aligned and isn't effective, then there's probably going to need to be a retraining opportunity, which again then doubles the cost or triples it, whatever that is. So it always, so TBR is ultimately helping to ensure that you deliver the training once and you deliver it well, effectively, so that people have something tangible to take away with them and they do something different forward from that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, isn't it? Yeah, like the cost of having to go through it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that yeah, no, there's so much like going on in my head. Maybe it's because I had a coffee before this as well. But I think of the amount of times I've been fearful of delivering training because I didn't know whether or not the people who were coming along wanted to be there.
Mm.
And when it was traditional like chalk and talk,
Mhm.
the people that wanted to be there, it's great, it's easy. You can
Mhm.
get up and you can just like chalk and talk through it all. And they really wanted to be there. They really wanted to learn. They asked you questions and it kind of flowed nicely. But yeah, they were in the minority. Most people who get kind of asked to go along to some form of training, if I go back into the old days, I don't know, Agile Manifesto, Agile Principles training, or basic Scrum type training, people didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And then that was a waste of time for them. What I found actually is that learning TBR, ignoring even like the 4 C's as a structure, but it gave me the confidence to pivot. And
Mhm.
because it is so tool heavy, then what it meant was that when I saw people weren't engaged, I was able to find out why they weren't engaged and able to get them more engaged more quickly. So whilst I'm still
Yeah.
nervous,
Yeah.
when you walk into a room full of people that you don't know if they want to be there, at least I know that I've got the tools in my back pocket to find a way to engage them.
Yeah. Yeah. They may have started the training because they don't want to be there because it's a mandatory training that the organization has enforced on
Mm,
everyone. So they may start from a place agnostic as to whether you've delivered in a train TBR way or not. They start in that place. But if you're delivering it using the TBR format, then ultimately they're going to be engaged throughout, and naturally they can change their mindset like live during the session rather
mhm,
than just being talked at with PowerPoint heavy slides. And if their mindset is I don't want to be here at the start, it's probably going to stay that way if they've not had an opportunity to engage as part of the training. Whereas TBR ensures that there's regular engagement literally from as soon as you start, as soon as you walk into the room. We use techniques so that we don't start with a slide where it's like, this is the training that you're going to deliver today. It's an activity as soon as you get in through a connection exercise. So that mindset can very quickly shift from straight away. So it makes it easier for the trainer to deliver because you
mm.
can see these people engaging and connecting straight away rather than getting lost and then never being able to be brought back in again.
Yeah. So if we like thinking about this idea of engagement and maybe people wanting to be there or not wanting to be there. And I think we've mentioned something called the 4 C's, this method of instructional design, of the different sections of it. There's some stat, and I don't know the efficacy of this stat, but like a high proportion of information that we learn in a standard classroom environment is forgotten,
Hmm.
within a couple of
Hmm.
weeks of us leaving the classroom.
Hmm.
And obviously then that is a huge waste.
Yeah.
So if you could share, so something from TBR that you think is like the single most impactful thing that we can do to help people remember
Hmm.
like what is learnt.
Yeah. Yeah, so in TBR, we refer to something called the six trumps, and ultimately these six trumps are neuroscience principles. They're based on how the brain works and how the brain actually learns information. And one of those six trumps, I'm sure we won't have time to go through all of them today, but one of them is images over words. So we all know, an image speaks 1,000 words. If you've got an image, you're much more likely to engage with it and remember it than if you've got lots of text on a slide. So yeah, images over words is like, to me, I think one of the most powerful ways to get your content over. So don't rely on loads of content heavy slides. Just have an image and allow people to connect with it and remember it that way.
What kind of images do you suggest? Are we like, do you pick a photo, or is it like a cartoon? Like what do you find works?
Yeah, so it just depends on the content, which is great about this because it is content agnostic. You can kind of deliver images in a way that's flexible to whatever the content is that you're delivering. So getting people to draw images, so then they're actually going through the action of drawing something, or just an image that evokes some sort of emotion as well, because then they're gonna be able to remember it as well. Another trump is different over same. So if it evokes some sort of reaction, if it leads to something different, they're also going to be able to remember it. So being something, some sort of different image, not something boring or basic, um, that's then going to lead to people remembering it a lot more.
So you mentioned this idea of well, science, right, when it comes to all of this. Like, it's interesting. TBR is often called brain-based learning, which sounds great, but when you think about it, like, what does that actually mean? So for those people that are listening and thinking, okay, well, this is all sounding great. Like, is there any science behind any of this? And you mentioned this, the six trumps. So great. It all sounds great, but is there actually any science behind it? Like, what
Mhm.
would your answer be to them?
Yeah, yeah, massively. It's all so Sharon, who wrote the book and designed the training, is has studied a lot around how the brain works and how ultimately we learn information. And it's all based around those six trumps that we mentioned. So images over words, you're much more likely to remember images. Shorter over longer. Our brains ultimately lose attention. We can't focus on too much at once. Different over the same, which I mentioned. um, yeah, so all of these trumps ultimately just are linked to all of that brain science, that neuroscience that's been done around how we learn and how we process information, um, and ensuring that ultimately we are processing and engaging with information regularly throughout, and not just switching off, because ultimately training is about delivering it in a way that people remember it and
Mhm.
and do something with it.
Okay, here's one for you then. And bear in mind, like, I have got some questions written down, but a lot of these now are just going to like, because of the great stuff you're saying, Rochelle, I'm genuinely interested in something. I spend a lot of my time, say a lot of my time, a portion of my time working with people in culture or HR, got a few clients. And I know that whilst learning and development is always seen as something which should be done, I often feel, and I think this is a sentiment which is shared between learning and development professionals as well, or people in culture, HR people, is that it doesn't get really the type of leadership buy-in that you'd really want. So yeah, they're sure that they'll go and train everyone, and that's great. But perhaps at times the leaders, senior leaders, don't really feel ownership of it. You don't feel that they feel responsible for the training.
Hmm.
If you're faced with a
Mm,
L&D professional now, and they said to you, okay, how can we, like, this all sounds brilliant, but we need to go to our senior leader and get some funding for this, or make the time for it, or this is going to be an investment to change some of our training. Like, what do we do? What would you say to them? Or what advice would you give them that then challenge leadership to take some ownership of the
mhm.
training?
Yeah. So I think the the great thing about TBR is they could then use it as a tool to get their own people to deliver the training. So rather than relying on consultants or external training companies to deliver the training, it's not going to be it's not going to be linked to the context. It's going to be kind of separate to it. So leaders can ultimately use training from the back of the room for either themselves or their team members to go on to this training and then deliver training aligned to their context, because they've lived it. They're living and breathing their context every day. So they can actually then deliver their training themselves. So it will ultimately get that connection there, because they're there delivering the training, or their people are there delivering the training. And not just getting a consultant to come in, which of course, like, I'm happy and comfortable to say I am a consultant. I work with clients, but I've seen it firsthand that training is a lot better when the people are there delivering it themselves and feel empowered to do it. So ultimately, we want to ensure that as consultants, we're making ourselves empowering the teams to be able to take it forward, and that's where I think it's going to be most empowering, is the
Mm.
organizations feel empowered themselves to be able to deliver the training rather than relying on someone else.
Yeah, that's good. I'm wondering if anyone's listening and they think, oh, well, actually, we'd love to convince our senior leaders that TBR is the way that we should go, then do get in touch with us, and like, maybe we could offer them a free ticket. Because it'd be, we really believe that training from the back of the room can be really impactful. and it can make a difference. And the great thing about it, it isn't a kind of land and expand style kind of training or consultancy. It's go in and train some people and teach them what to do, and then allow them to go and be great. And I think of such an incredibly wide array of people that have attended my TBR courses over the years, not all in tech,
Hmm.
many outside of tech, and even then within kind of tech organizations, many agile coaches, but also lots of technical coaches or developers. We've had a few CTOs, we've had a few heads of engineering or lead
Hmm.
architects who have come because they want to find ways to have people better remember what they tell them or what they're
Yep.
told. So there's a huge amount of opportunity there, I feel, for senior leaders to. Um, I mean, let's be honest, right? Everybody wants to make an impact. And what better way for a senior leader to make a strong impact than to get their people retaining the information which is relevant and put them in a position where they can recall it when it's necessary?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Recall and do something with it. Have that action rather than, yep, I attended a training course and I don't actually remember anything that was covered in it.
Mm,
Much more powerful if they can recall what they learned in the session and do something with it.
yeah, especially when it's part of a larger change initiative. I
Yeah.
think that's maybe sometimes it's often overlooked is that TBR is really useful if you're undertaking a larger change initiative. Because if you think, you've got a room full of people who are very nervous about something, going straight in and saying like, and this is what's changing. Like, sometimes it lands, a lot of the time it doesn't.
Hmm.
So if you were then, I'm a senior. I'm not a senior leader. I'm senior, but I think I'm a leader. Um, and I'm leading this big change effort, and we're going to be starting to really engage with the organization. And I've heard about TBR, and it sounds quite interesting. And I can kind of maybe use my imagination to figure out how I could use it for this kind of transformation kickoff session I'm going to be running. People have heard rumors, and we've been planning stuff, but everyone's getting a bit nervous about it. So now's the time to really kind of put it out there. What would you recommend that I do? It from a TBR perspective to engage my organization in this transformation?
Yeah. So I guess deliver content in a short and sharp way. TBR is is really kind of successful when you felt the magic of it, you felt the energy of it. So if you're struggling to kind of land it with your organization, do just like a short an hour piece on TBR so they can actually truly experience it, like go through those kind of 4 C's but in a shorter way. And actually, you'll notice straight away within that short amount of piece of time that you can get like content across, but also ensure that people are doing something with it, that ensuring that they've confirmed what they know and actually have some actions that come away from it. So yeah, ultimately doing, doing it in a short way to help the message land.
So then, if we're going to be looking at that, and I'm saying, okay, that makes sense to me. Great. And I hear about this idea of the 4 C's. How would connections work? If I'm going to be looking to run like a connection style activity with all of my organization, what kind of connection activity could I do in this situation? And also, just stepping aside from my crappy role play, like, this is unscripted. And I know you like to prepare for things, so apologies if this is like they're not the most comfortable question, but I think it's an interesting one. Like, is there any advice you could give to the people about to that leader who wants to kind of use the 4 C's and is looking at connections, say, well, how do I get people connecting to this at the very beginning of my pitch?
Yeah, yeah. So one technique that we've used as part of TBR that can work really well is just asking them, having a slide at the start of the room, just asking them, what do you already know about this content? So, I'm an agile coach, so asking the room, what do you already know about Scrum, and getting people to talk about it. So getting them to talk, pair to pair or in small groups, to see what they already know about that information, and then sharing it back with the room. So getting volunteers to share it back. Because ultimately, what's really powerful about that exercise, it's really simple. One question, get people to talk to each other. But it's really powerful because then from that point onwards, people are then going to connect any new information that's been covered as part of that session, to what they already know. And, we were talking about brain science earlier. And ultimately, neural pathways are only formed if it's connected to something. We can't form neural pathways without that connection. So doing that connection exercise, asking what they already know, they've then got something that they connect to, and then any new information from that point forward is going to connect to it. So they can actually form that neural pathway and take it forward. They can actually learn that information.
I like that. I remember, what reminds me, I did an OKR workshop. And I haven't done this. I haven't done the same way since, I don't think. And I asked at the beginning of the workshop, what is it that makes what's necessary for successful change? And I got people to put up all their different ideas. And then actually what I did is I used that then throughout the workshop I was doing to kind of reference back and say, look, okay, we're going to be talking about OKRs. Like OKRs do that thing you mentioned there. OKRs enable that thing you've done there. So I think if you start, if you were pitching a transformation and you use something, a question, such as what makes successful change, and get everyone to put this stuff down, then you can signpost that in your approach. But then you also then get a great kind of gauge of where the organization is at, and you can begin to tailor. You can take that information because it's good information. So the connections activity is such a great way to start anything. And I wonder, how many big corporate training initiatives actually take on board any of this, and how many are still just the same old shit?
Yeah, yeah. You hear the war stories all of the time of organizations just running training because it's a tick box exercise, and then they've put together slides to deliver the training, and then they just drone on and on in terms of the content. And yeah.
What's the most I suppose, with bearing in mind everything we've spoken about, what's the most important thing for you about training from the back of the room? I mean, you mentioned energy, and we've covered the different techniques and the tools, and we said about its applicability and how important it is for organizations to embrace these different ways. Like, at the beginning, you said you love the energy of it. Like, given this conversation, is that still where you're at? Do you still feel that energy is the biggest thing that people can take away?
Yeah, so there's that, but there's also, I guess, connection with each other. So we talk about the connection exercise, but also the connection to people. TBR is great in terms of ensuring that people connect with each other regularly through these exercises, that we have activities throughout the session. It's getting people to talk to each other and learn from each other. And by going on the TBR course, you get added to a Slack community, which I found great recently myself, because I was delivering a training and had a question on it, like how do I do this? Posted it into the Slack troop, and so many people have replied to go, oh, have you tried this? Have you thought about this? So you've always got that safe community to reach out to and ask a question, be vulnerable with, and connect with each other in terms of how to do stuff, and um, use that community to connect with each other.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, and then I think, if I was an L&D professional, and I'm thinking, okay, like, putting myself in their shoes, what's the most important thing for them? And I thought, maybe there's an element here of the most important thing for them in regards to all of this is that they get to look pretty good.
Mm.
I think that with so much training being dull and crap and poorly received, and people trying all different types of, let's do lunch and learns, and let's do this and let's do that. Unless you're kind of doing it in a good and engaging way, it's still the same old stuff. So I think that, if I think of the most important thing from an N&D professional's perspective is actually embracing training from the back of the room actually makes you look shit hot.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Puts you in a really, really strong position to be really driving a narrative about how learning should be in your organization in a different way. And then importantly, in a proven way.
Yeah.
Training from the back of the room is decades old
Yeah.
and still continues to surprise people and make huge inroads in improving adult education.
Yeah.
And I think you can see that from just the incredible array of people that are in that community that you mentioned on the Slack channel. It isn't just, agile people. There's a huge range of people in there. And I think that L&D professionals could really do themselves a favor by coming on a course and just seeing what it's all about. Because I think it really could make them look great.
Yeah, it makes them look great, and also it shows the people that they care about their time, that they're not just put on a training course just to tick the box. Like their time is valued. They appreciate that, yes, by going on this training course, you're not going to be able to do everything else that you want to be able to do during that time. So
Mm,
we're going to use this time in the most efficient and effective way by delivering training in a way that's going to keep that is learner led. It's focused on you as the learners and not on the trainer. It's, short and sharp content, regular activities, regular confirmation,
mm.
um, ensuring that, they're going to get value out of that session. So it's valuing their time, which then is, a massive win for organizations if people can feel like their time is valued, because time is precious.
Yeah. Time is money.
Hmm.
Time is one thing we can't get more of.
Yeah.
And Christ, you want to enjoy this kind of very short opportunity we have at life. And so let's make it a bit more enjoyable. Without wanting to get too obsessed about the sad stuff. Thinking again then from a L&D professional's perspective, or even, dare I say from an agile coach's perspective, or somebody who's brought into an organization to drive some training,
Hmm.
when it goes wrong and it's shit, right, which happens,
Hmm.
who gets to blame? And I personally take a huge amount of weight on my shoulders for wanting things to be good and for
Yeah.
people not to want to leave thinking it was terrible.
Yeah.
Or I want people. Well, I would leave. I want people to leave thinking this was not a waste of my time. So I will bust a gut to try and give people the best time possible.
Yeah.
And training from the back of the room enables that. But generally speaking, when training is crap and it's shite, like who's going to get the blame? You
Yeah.
know, if it's one or two, if it's a bit of training that's crap, maybe the trainer gets the blame. If it's a whole suite of training that's crap,
Yeah.
and then there's loads of noise around it about how much time has been wasted across all of it, and it isn't probably the trainers that's going to get the flag. It's going to be the person that arranged for it all because
Yeah.
they didn't make the right decision.
Yeah. But what's great is that it training from the back of the room gives you a way to make your training lots of mini trainings regularly throughout the
Mm,
session. So if something does fail, you've got a pivot point, because of the way that it's designed is there's lots of mini parts of the training that you're delivering, and it follows this cycle that we teach people. And ultimately, so if something doesn't land, then it's not going to be long until the next part of the training is then delivered in a completely different way and a
mm,
different format. So then they're able to then re-engage at that point. Traditional training is usually kind of very kind of flat and end to end, like this is the delivery that we're going to deliver. If it's failed, it's going to be failed, throughout the
yeah,
entire training. So training from back of room gives you ways to ensure that you can pivot throughout that training
yeah.
session, because there's lots of opportunities to be able to do that.
But pivoting, Rochelle, means there isn't consistency. God damn it! I want consistency in my training. I want everybody to leave with exactly the same outcome. Thank you very much. Is what some people might say. Uh, but it's true. I mean, a lot of the time it's always the same. It's because the people feel that if everyone hears the same thing, everyone takes the same thing away.
Mm,
But without wanting to talk about religion, look at the Bible. How many people have read that? And how many people actually interpret it the same way?
mm,
Like every book, everything that's written down or given to people is always interpreted by different people in different ways. And it is a massive, massive misconception that we can just deliver the same old stuff and
yeah,
everyone's going to have exactly the same idea. It doesn't work that way.
yeah, exactly. We've got diverse minds, and it's a great thing. It's great. Diversity is key to ensure that everyone takes away what they need to take away from that moment personally to then be able to do something with it. So it should be encouraged to do things in different ways to kind of engage everyone in the process, and not just like this is because this is the way we're doing it and we're expecting everyone to understand it in the same way. Like, we want to ensure that people personally connect with it and are able to do something with it.
Mhm. So how do we get consistency? If you're rolling out a training program or something, and you want to get a level of consistency in at least the topics that are covered, how does TBR kind of enable you to allow a bit of pivoting and allow for different activities,
Hmm.
but yet stick to the same outcomes?
Yeah. So yeah, the the key focus of training from the back of the room is keep the end in mind. So start with the end in mind, and it is outcome focused. So we teach a technique to be able to write outcomes in a way of this is the outcomes that we want to achieve as part of the training, and then everything as part of that training course is then aligned to achieving those outcomes. So we're ensuring that those outcomes are wrote first, keeping the end of mind, and then deliver the training content aligned to those outcomes.
And I think that's a huge win. And something actually which I think our courses are going to be a little bit different, because they're the way that TBR teaches outcomes, I think, is great. Learning outcomes is great. But I don't know if you feel the same. I feel that they're very much learning outcomes written from the perspective of someone that has to assess whether the training is meeting the outcomes or not. I.e., they want you to have verbs in them. So, can the person do this? Can the person do that? But I find that actually, from a marketing perspective and from a sales perspective, they're not very engaging to the learner. Like, we write them in quite a robotic way, and they're really, really useful for when you're trying to understand, is your training hitting the mark? Or if you're assessing somebody else, say, for example, I see Agile, ask you to evidence the way that you're teaching people and show that they've learned it. So having outcomes worded in that way are really good for you to join the dots in that way. But they're kind of a bit dull if you're a learner reading these learning outcomes. And I think one of the things that we could cover, because we'll be doing some bolt-ons to our training as well, just to kind of add a bit more to the whole TBR canon, is, so how can you write learning outcomes that are better for selling, basically ones that actually talk to the learner. So can the learner demonstrate the usage of powerful questions, or can the learner do that, is great for us, but it isn't going to sell. So, well, how can we flip that to say, actually, master powerful questions, uncover find people's unmet needs, that type of thing. And I think that's a great thing that between us we can add into it, because yes, we will be delivering training from the back of the room course, but we are looking at what additional learning we can bolt on for free afterwards remotely, so that everyone who comes on the course does get the opportunity to learn extra value added techniques and concepts which aren't part of the core TBR material. And I think we'll be the only people in the UK, and maybe even wider, who are going to offer that kind of value add service. Can you remember what else we were going to add, Rochelle?
I'm not really sure where to go with that. But yeah, come along to TBR.
Yeah, well, we were going to cover how to use TBR in the remote environment. That's one of the extra little bolt-ons we were thinking of. So there's all kinds of different little add-ons we're going to be adding. So yeah, be sure to check out. And if you've enjoyed the live stream, because we are kind of coming to an end, and do go to www.sheev.co.uk and check out the training for the back of the room training schedule. That's where you can buy tickets for our courses, or connect with Rochelle or myself on LinkedIn, ask us a question. We're more than happy to field any TBR questions that you have, or even just to connect. It's always nice to make a new friend.
Yeah.
Rochelle, you're giving me nearly at time. Is there
Yes.
any particular passing thought, closing thought that you have, other than obviously the giveaway, which we'll mention in a moment?
Yeah, we'll put the link in the chat to access the training from the back of the room training that we have on next month, which I'm very excited about. Yeah, I just think it's it's worth giving it a go. Like I had high expectations from going into the course, and they met and exceeded my high expectations of TBR. Hence why I'm here now as a trainer. I'm really excited to deliver my first training next month. So, yeah, I would say give it a go, because it really is an empowering tool that you
Mm.
can use in any context. Yeah.
Be great to see you all there. And we are giving away a ticket. Who would have thought it? We are giving away a ticket, and we are giving away some training from the back of the room books. So if you would like to have in the running to win a ticket to our course on April the 28th and 29th in London, or maybe even just the thought of winning a TBR book tickles your fancy, then please do go to LinkedIn, go to the Sheave page. I'll put the link to this into the chat in YouTube now, and I'll also put this on the LinkedIn thingy bob as well in a moment. Do go ahead, read the instructions on the post and see just what on earth it is, because you get the opportunity to win some free stuff. It's very, very easy to enter. And you know,
Mhm.
if you're really lucky, you get to meet me and Rochelle in person. And I mean,
Yes.
what more could anybody want? I mean, come on. What a way to spend 2 days. Everybody, thank you so much for coming along. And apologies for the technical difficulties we experienced at the beginning. It won't happen next time. And hopefully, Rochelle and I will do another one of these at some point in the future. Anybody want to say thank you or goodbye to, Rochelle?
Thanks. Thanks, Rashi, for joining. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Rohit. Yeah, thanks so much for joining. Hopefully, I haven't missed any other names. They're the ones that I can see in the chat. So yeah, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you giving up your lunch hour to listen to all things TBR. And hopefully you've learned something and taken something away today, and got
Brilliant.
a chance for the competition. So even better.
Competition time. Yes. I echo all of that. So, Rochelle, thank you very much for coming on and answering the questions so brilliantly. And everybody, thank you very much for joining. We'll do another live stream at some point in the future. But in the interim, if you liked what you hear and you want to hear more of these topics, then do check out the Product Agility podcast. This episode, this live stream we've done may well end up on there. Who knows? But do check out that we have many other TBR related episodes, interviews with JP Bailey, and some other training from the back of the room trainers that we recorded over a year ago, and some gold stuff in there. So please do check out the Product Agility podcast. Great. We'll end it there. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.